Well, it's Thursday. I'm Carl Azus. This is CNN Student News. We're jumping right in today with a milestone you might have noticed, but a lot of folks aren't too happy about. In the United States, the average cost of a gallon of gasoline has been at least $3 for 1,000 days in a row. Some folks might be used to it, but you also might remember when gas prices were lower. Christine Romans looks at some of the driving forces behind the increase.
The last time the average price of a gallon of gas was under $3 a gallon was in December 2010. The trend has been higher for a decade now, but look at this right here. December 2010 was the last time you saw it below. And here, well, you had super low prices here, but that was because of a global financial crisis. So why is gas so high? A few reasons here. First, global instability. No surprise, the Arab Spring began in December 2010, about the same time this oil run started. Syria concerns more recently have kept oil prices high. The world wants more oil, and we're seeing rising demand for gas in the developing world, places like China and India. We're not seeing the cheap supplies that we used to, right? We're getting fuel from fracking and deep water platforms, and that is expensive. And tightening supply and demand is something that investors are watching. It keeps prices rising when you see these fundamental shifts. Investors demanding here, that investor demand also driving up the price of crude oil. So is this the new normal? Well, we asked Tom Closa, chief oil analyst for GasBuddy. He says this is where we are now. By the end of the new year, by the end of the year into the new year, you could see maybe $3 a gallon. Of course, all that depends on Syria and whether conflict can be peacefully resolved there. It also depends on the Fed. If the Fed should begin to taper back its bond purchases, that could mean demand for commodities would go down, demand for things like oil, investor demand for oil, and that could mean lower gas prices ahead. So watch those two things, Syria and the Fed. That could matter to how much you're paying for a gallon of gas.
You heard Christine say the Fed. She's talking about the U.S. Federal Reserve, the country's central bank. It's responsible for implementing monetary policies. Basically, the Fed controls the country's money supply. In recent years, the Fed has bought bonds and other kinds of securities to try to help the struggling U.S. economy. It's a practice called quantitative easing. Christine mentioned the possibility of the Fed backing off that practice. Yesterday, the Federal Reserve announced it won't. The Fed said it doesn't see enough improvement in the economy right now, so it's going to keep buying bonds at the same rate for at least another month. That news went over well on Wall Street. The Dow Jones average and the S&P 500, they give an idea of how the whole stock market is doing. They both jumped to record levels yesterday after the Fed's announcement. In the U.S., a person making just over $11,500 a year is living below the poverty line. For a family of four, it's just under $23,500. What's surprising is that 15% of Americans are living in poverty now, according to a new report by the U.S. Census. It's the third year in a row that the poverty rate has been at or above 15%. The last time it was that high for this long was 1965. You'd be right to blame the Great Recession for part of this. It sent a lot of folks into poverty. But the recession officially ended in June of 2009. Poverty peaked the next year. What worries many economists is that it hasn't significantly decreased since then. One analyst put it like this: the U.S. economy has been growing, but that hasn't made a difference yet to many U.S. citizens. Jobs have been coming back, but they're just not paying as much. Right now, the median household income is $51,000 a year. In 2007, it was higher at more than $55,000.
See if you can ID me. I became a U.S. state in 1912. I'm one of the Four Corners states, and I'm surrounded by Arizona, Colorado, and Texas. My nickname is Land of Enchantment. I'm New Mexico, and I'm the 5th largest state in size.
The 5th largest state is under a statewide disaster declaration. That means government funds will be made available to help people, and it's after severe floods washed through parts of New Mexico. People in the town of Madrid are cleaning up from water, mud, and coal. Piles of it from nearby abandoned mines broke loose and flowed across people's property. Officials say the coal doesn't pose any additional health risks. Up in Colorado, helicopters are moving around the state, swooping down to rescue people trapped by flooding there. Authorities say hundreds of people were airlifted to safer ground this week. Hundreds of others are still stranded. So are thousands of people in Mexico. A tropical storm and a hurricane dumped huge amounts of water on the country. The severe weather made rescue efforts difficult for a while, but they got back on track yesterday. Going across the Atlantic Ocean now because today's roll call schools are all in Europe. First up, the Dragons at Alconbury Middle High School in England. Next, we'll hop over the channel and head to France's Loire Valley to say hello to our viewers in Tours. And finally, Ukraine gets onto the roll call with the National University of Ostro Academy. Former civil rights activist has a message for young men in Memphis, Tennessee, and he wants as many people as possible to see it. Show your mind, not your behind. Fred Davis paid $6,000 to put this billboard up for the next 3 months. He says he's trying to encourage young men to realize that sagging your pants can have a negative impact on your future.
If you want to be upwardly mobile, you can't present that image to people who are qualified to make a decision about you.
Davis was part of the civil rights movement in the 1960s. He marched with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and he says his experiences are part of the reason why he thinks this message is important.
We didn't fight for a thuggish mentality. We fought to create an opportunity for the generations who came behind us.
So do you agree that saggy pants say something about your future prospects, or is the only statement they make a fashion statement? We know you've got opinions on this. Our blog is the place to share them. If you're 13 or older, you can go to cnnstudentnews.com. Just remember, whether you're pro or anti-sag, we only accept your first name when you comment. Say you had a bad day. We all do. How do you handle it? Maybe you just sing a sad song just to turn it around. You work at a Smile and you go for a ride. All right, we wanted some advice from someone besides Daniel Powter, so we asked some high school juniors and seniors how they handle bad days for this edition of the CNN Student News Viewfinder.
Usually just going to a teacher, maybe not to talk about anything, but to just hear about their life experiences, to hear about ways they can make me feel better is always a great place to start.
Beyonce. When my day goes bad, I just turn on my iPod and I listen to Beyonce and I sing like I'm in Amsterdam or somewhere.
Then, I'll go onto YouTube and look up, inspirational videos and look and just, just remind myself, what I'm doing, what I want to accomplish, what I want to get to.
I go mainly to my father because he knows me very well, and I just talk to him about it and he's able to listen.
I go to my parents and I just talk to them and make sure, explain to them how I'm feeling, and also my friends, and they normally can help me out.
I'm gonna be really honest, I grab my Bible and I crack it open to some of my favorite highlighted verses and I just cling to that.
I would definitely go to some of my best friends because they're always there to support me, and I talk to my parents, I listen to music or read a book.
I keep a little box in my room where I write all the good things that happen to me on sticky notes and put them in the box. And when I'm having a bad day, I just cut open the box and just start reading through those things and remind myself that there are lots of good things in life as well as the bad.
My mom would be the person that I will go to. She's very comforting and she is very good with handling problems, and I believe I can always dip in on her.
Okay, most of the time I look to my music for inspiration because it helps me get away just to think about things and listen to what other, people have to say through their music.
There are only around 5,000 black rhinoceros in the world, but there's one more at a zoo in Chicago, and he made his public debut in this YouTube video. King was born last month, weighed around 60 pounds then, now he's up to 200, so he seems to be growing just fine. The fresh-faced guy is happy to follow his mother around in his pen for now, but eventually he might want a taste of the limelight, and that's when the young rhino will try to horn in on the spotlight. For now, though, he's just a baby who needs regular naps. You know how he knows when to go to sleep? When it's rhino clock. After that one, we might want to hide. We'll zoom back tomorrow to close out the week. Have a great day.